And
we are now streaming on Facebook, it says.
Yes.
Okay, so we are going to jump into another edition of our Uncorked interviews for National Athletic Training Month. My name is Chelsea Lowe, and I'm on the Women in Athletic Training Board, and I get the honor of interviewing today. In 2021, all of our NATM Uncorks were focused on a lot of the emerging settings, and we wanted to make sure that we included everyone because not everyone has worked in all the settings. So this interview is really going to focus on the collegiate setting, and we have a Division I, Division II, and Division III represented. We will do a different Uncorked to touch on the NAIA and the JUCO side as well, so that you kind of get a full spectrum of what is happening in those settings and how things have changed over time, and how they're different from when you did a rotation as a student. So before I jump into our introductions, I did just want to say that tomorrow we have another Uncorked coming your way. It will be on traveling international as an athletic trainer. And I'm looking forward to that because I've never traveled international. So I cannot wait to ask those questions as well and learn all about that. I know it's more than just not having ice. So that will be a great conversation to have. But let's just jump into it. So with us, we have our esteemed leader of the WAT Board, Megan Smith, who is currently at the University of Delaware. I point this way, but you never know where they are in the screen. We have Ms. Angelica Sabatini, who is also on the WAT Board, and she is at Washington Jefferson College. And we have Mary Catherine, also goes by MK, at California University of Pennsylvania, or CalU. So, ladies, tell us something about yourself that is not easily found on your resume, and we're gonna jump off with Angelica.
Something not on my resume is that I love to be crafty and crochet.
Mm-hmm. And she is amazing at it, I have to say. Her artwork is fantastic. All right, MK, what's something not on your resume?
I also like to be crafty, but I do not crochet, but I do hand lettering. So I like to do that in my free time. Yeah.
And Miss Megan?
So, I think you already know mine, but I love to bake. I'm currently in a baking competition at work called All or Muffin, just for fun, but I love to bake in my free time I don't eat a whole lot of it, but to give to others. My coworkers really like me, I think, for that reason.
If you want to have baking jealousy or follow along, you can follow along at Baking with Meg is her IG. But I warn you, you will get very jealous of all the food that she posts because you can't reach through Instagram and buy it and eat it. So when that happens, I'll be the first in line to have it shipped all the way to Iowa. Okay, so did all of you want to work in your setting originally? MK, we're going to start with you.
Yes, I went to school at a D2 school, so that was kind of what I was exposed to at first, and I thought it was a really good balance. And then went to grad school at a D1 school, and I worked at a D3 school, and I still think that it's a good balance. So
awesome.
Kind of, yes.
Angelica?
No, I fully convinced myself that I was going to work professional baseball. And then I traveled with the D3 school that I work at for 4 weeks in a row, just the weekend, not even the whole week. And I was like, just kidding. I don't want to travel all the time. I'm good at the D3 level. I'm like, I'll just stay right here. So it was a little bit of a plot twist. I think it would be cool to work any level, but I definitely was like, yes, professional baseball all the way. And then I'm like, just kidding.
It's amazing how one experience can change your entire trajectory. I knew I wanted to work. I went into undergrad being I'm totally going to work high school and I'm going to teach during the day. And this is what I'm meant to do. And I did my high school rotation and said, no, thank you. I will do anything else. And I will say, let me be very, very clear on this, because this shows up a lot in the social media realm, I believe, in all the social media realms. That is not because I have anything against secondary athletic trainers. It is because I have so much respect for what all the secondary athletic trainers do in the world. I could never even touch it. I don't have the patience for it. I don't have the stamina for it. I don't know. I would just write off at a parent. Like, no, I cannot. No, it's enough to deal with like the 18 to 24-year-old, right? Like, there's no way. So like when secondary athletic trainers say that they feel like collegiate athletic trainers have something against them, like my heart hurts, because like like you are a higher level than I could ever attain to be, because I cannot deal with that. Like the notes you have to coordinate with back and forth, like no. No, we will be interviewing secondary in a few weeks, and like those women, bow down to them. If you are secondary and you are watching right now, we appreciate you very, very much. So I have yet to meet, like in all honesty, I have not met a collegiate athletic trainer who is doing that sort of disrespect for secondary. Like, we thankful all that you have done to let them get to where they are for us, but like you have so much more to deal with. Like 500 athletes per one, and even more than that. Like, no, I'm out. Taps out for that. No, thank you. Anywho's, Megan, is this where you always wanted to be?
So a little bit of yes and no, because like part of me wanted to kind of go professional route. I did my undergrad and grad school at D1, and I fell in love with it. I did have, your rotations at high school, and I also was like, had that same experience of like, I'm not cut for this kind of cloth here. Like, this is some high quality cloth, and I can't keep up.
They are goddesses, like the patience, like just the ability to sit down across from a 13-year-old and be like, yes, your wrist does hurt. Let me help you with that. I can't. Or like to the parent that's like, they're going to play like, sir, your son is literally bleeding from a broken nose. No, he may not go in the game. Well, I'm the parent. No.
Yeah. And that was my experience, and I was like, no, this is not for me. And I also did like our D3 rotation, which I enjoyed, but just not as much as I really enjoyed my D1 experience, and that's where I'm at now.
Yeah, I feel that for sure. I did do 13 years in the collegiate setting, mid-major. I've actually done all of the collegiate settings of D1. Like, I've done mid-major, I've done Power 5, and I've done the one AAA, like the school that doesn't have football. But their big thing was hockey. But so I've done that. I always wanted to do D1. I love D1. It comes with positives and minuses of being at that level for sure. But yeah, that was what I wanted to do, and stuck with that once I figured that out. But less about me for sure. What are you limited to, if anything, in doing at each of your settings? Want to go with Megan first?
Yeah. So I think so I kind of work at a unicorn university. We have so much available, and I'm very thankful I work here, because our resources we have a lot. For anyone, I'm not at a Power 5, I'm at a mid-major. So that's not as common for mid-majors to have so many resources. I'm part of athletic training is housed within sport performance, where we work together with sports nutrition and sports psych and our strength coaches all together as a network. So I am very thankful. And we have a PT school here as well. We have UDPT come in and work with our athletes as well for long-term care. And so we've got a lot going on. And so limited resources is not so much something that I think that we deal with so much on our end. I mean, it's fortunately for me, I hope everyone else can have that as well. But yeah, so I feel like we're pretty good. I understand, again, not everyone has this kind of like setup, but if you do, great. If you don't, keep pushing for it, because it's pretty like A+.
Okay, so then we will continue on from there, because I'm sure we're gonna find a little bit more challenges. MK, what you got for us?
So I just transitioned into a D2 setting from a D3 setting. So I'm still kind of like, oh, wow, this is so different. You know, I've gone from a staff of 4 to a staff of 6 and 2 GAs. So I'm still kind of in that like honeymoon phase, I guess, where it's like, wow, we have enough people. But I mean, I feel like you could always say more athletic trainers, always. But for the most part, I think that's kind of, it is kind of in the middle where we don't have as many resources maybe as it is a D1 setting, but definitely have the facilities and the space that we need.
And Miss Angelica, I know you got something for us.
I would say that we are like the complete opposite of Megan, where we like just have athletic trainers and like a team doc who I love with all of my heart, but he's like an old Italian guy who hasn't like he's doesn't even do surgery anymore. So like he just like sees our kids, and then like we have to like refer them out if they need like surgery or something. So like sometimes I think things get lost in the shuffle because like kids will just go see whoever they want to, and like information doesn't always get back to us. So I would say like that, where we're in like the opposite of, I mean, we have 4 full-time athletic trainers, and while that doesn't seem like a lot for 26 varsity sports, like it is a lot in our conference. So I'm grateful because our coaches are amazing, and they, for the most part, you know, there's always a few, but for the most part, they're amazing, and they work with us with practices and if something happens and nobody's there kind of thing. I mean, that would probably be it, just not as many resources.
I come from the mid-major level where we needed all kinds of resources. We definitely didn't have what Megan had, where we didn't have any kind of mental health on staff. We didn't have a nutritionist on staff. There was one strength coach for us to work with. Everybody had at least 2 sports, if not more. It was a budget that hasn't changed in 18 years. Like all of the things where you're like, we're gonna make that work. We're just gonna keep reusing that brace. It's fine, we're good. And I think the thing that was limiting to our setting, or that was frustrating to me to our setting, was like, please stop assuming that every single college sport, and I'm sure all of you guys can see this, but like, please stop assuming that every single college department in the world is like millionaires. Like the school is not. I think there's like 12 schools in the nation that aren't in the red, like total for all of their athletics. And that hurts the athletic training staff probably the most, I would say, of all of the departments, at least in my experience in collegiate, that's where the problem lies. It's like when you walk into a physician's office or you get a bill from something, it's say, well, you guys are college, you'll be fine, you can totally afford that. You're like, no, like we're having problems because tape price went up, so we're not doing that, no thank you. Or like, we're definitely gonna need the prereq on that surgery, thank you, okay. So I think it's just like, that's a piece that I think applies to all the divisional settings, is like, it may look like it, but no, we're not professional sports. Like, this is not just like engineering money. Okay, so a question that is definitely applicable, and I want to hear all of your answers to this one, is everyone has done a collegiate rotation. We all went to college, so therefore we have done collegiate rotations. I can't imagine that someone went to school and didn't at least do a rotation within their university or at a university level. So since all athletic trainers have been around the university setting, I think that there's a idea that they already know how it works, and then they've chosen not to go that route. So what is something that you did not learn in your undergrad, did not experience in your undergrad, or something that you want people to know about the collegiate setting that you would never have learned on rotations? Let's go with MK first.
I would say one thing, I mean, I guess I knew about it, like, as in I know this happens, but I didn't necessarily like ever have to deal with it, would be like 2 main things. How much time like administrative duties take. Like, I knew they happened and everyone told me that they happened and said you need to set aside time, but like I didn't realize how long it was going to take me to like sit down and do an injury report, or sit down and like update all of these things. Like, I just didn't realize how much of your day goes to that. And like, when you're trying to slide that in between this treatment, like it adds up. And then again, I knew this happened, and I had great mentors who like kind of talked me through it, but like dealing with conflicts like with your coaches, I didn't quite realize how much of a part of the job that is, and how whenever you have that first experience, like it's on you and you're kind of like, oh yeah, this is me now, like I'm the person in charge. I had great mentors through that experience, but it was still, at the end of the day, something that I had to deal with.
Yeah, I think when you do rotations, you're like, all right, I'll be here at 1 and I'm going to be always a late day. I was here till 7. You're like, sweetie, I got here at 6:30. I forgot to have lunch and we're just now leaving together. By the way, I wasn't just sitting around all morning. Here's what we did. And I think that the newer accreditation standards actually require like an immersion, is what they're calling it, where like you have to travel around with that person. Like you are next to them at the desk, you are filling out all the paperwork. If they get a lunch break, you get a lunch break. Like you kind of have to go along and see what that's like. And I think that would be an invaluable and terrifying experience. Because then I think you get to see a lot about the settings that you had no idea. And you're like, oh no, why would you do this? And we do it anyways. Angelica.
I would have to agree a lot with MK. At W&J, we also have to do like insurance ourselves. And like I remember, so we had somebody that did it and then she left and they didn't hire anybody else because it was right around COVID, of course. So I remember like getting like my first MRI and they're like, here, call the insurance company. And I'm like, hello, like what am I doing? Like, and then like I over like the past year and a half, 2 years that I've been doing it, like I still feel like I don't know what I'm doing half the time. But there's been times where like I've sat on hold, like I've canceled appointments or asked like other athletic trainers, hey, can you hook this kid up? Can you look at this kid? Because I've been on hold for 45 minutes for them to tell me that pre-authorization is not required. So one of like those moments where you're like, holy crap, like I literally was on hold so long. So just like things like that like MCA said, just take up so much more time. And I definitely agree with like the conflict and like you're in charge, like you're making the decisions. So, like anytime that I even have like a student anymore, I'm like, well, what are we gonna do? Like you make the decision. Like I don't know, not that like we didn't go over return to play or like final decision, but like when you're an undergrad, like you don't make the final decision. Like it's not really like up to you. So like I remember the first time where I'm like, oh, that's me. Like I have to make that decision on whether you're ready. You're like, it was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, we had a preceptor in my undergrad who did this really cool thing where the assistant coach had been around almost as long as the head coach and could ask very interesting questions as well. So they would prep us and we would present to the assistant coach while the AT was presenting to the head coach. And then they would fire back the same questions like, well, why not? Well, why can't they just do this? Can they do this? And then as a student, you're walking out there like, I had no ideas, no question. I don't know what to do. Help, mom, help. So like, it was a very like, I love that opportunity to be like, oh, I will get back to you with that answer. Mm-hmm. Hold on a second. So I think that helped. But you can't really like, there's not really a better prep for walking in and just getting fired out with questions like, here is why they can't go out and play right now. And this is why, and I'm standing by it. Okay. All right, Megan.
I kind of echoing what, MK said and a little bit of Angelica. Bless you for the insurance part of that. Like, man, that's thankful for insurance coordinators out there. You're doing great work. Yeah. Anyways, I think mine would be like the different hats that you're going to be. So I was aware of it as a student, but I didn't realize, I guess, the role of all of those hats at times and the communication aspect of it. Like one of them specifically, like I think of that comes to mind is like, I wish we would have gone over a little bit more of mental health, and these things were discussed, and obviously things have evolved since I was in college, which, looking back is like a decade ago. So not to age myself a bit, but you know, things have evolved, things have changed, and I do my best to kind of do that. But like, until you have your first mental health crisis, I mean, I remember my first mental health crisis with an athlete, and I was like, you want me to take care of this? Like, I mean, like, I'm putting the hat on, I'm going, I'm like, we're going in confidence with what I do know and following the procedures that we do have, and acting in best interest for the athlete. But at the same time, like, that's not in a textbook. That's, unless you like, unless you've like kind of gone through it, but like, but if there is some kind of like way to simulate that in like a college setting of some sort, like you're going to be wearing these hats of like, of quote unquote mom and dad, to the full extent in many cases, whether we're talking about mental health, sexual history, or testing, we're talking about career ending decisions that life altering, and that consoling aspect, and working through that. You know, like, again, all these different facets into the profession that I just kind of like, I was aware was there, but I didn't realize I love the different hats. I've learned and grown, and I'm to continue to do so, but you know, sometimes a little heads up would have been nice.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot more to the educational side, CEU wise, that I would love to be able to tap into. Like, I would love for there, and I know this sounds really like dorky, but I would love there to be like an insurance conference or like a subset of that, so that I can, like, as an insurance coordinator, watch out for my children that are coming in now. As an insurance coordinator, I can go and learn, like, okay, talk me through all the ins and outs of this. Like, yeah, eventually I learned over time, but like Angelica had, I didn't have anyone to teach me, you know, the ins and outs of how to make those phone calls, or the best way to keep track of those phone calls that I've made. So I think that's going to be huge. Okay, so what extra certifications have you guys sought after because you're in the collegiate setting? Megan?
So I try to, obviously you want to find things that are going to push you forward in your clinical practice. I work clinically. I do have students with me, but I'm solely clinical, and I try to find those things where I feel like I'm lacking. So those mental health things that we talked about, updated research on clinical diagnoses and how to better diagnose or rehab. So I feel like all of my educational things CEUs have gone towards that. I don't know, extra certifications. I have done a Mulligan's upper extremity course, which I do enjoy. I did enjoy learning about that, and I do implement that through some of my daily treatment stuff. But again, with our integrative team, we all kind of work together. We all have different certifications to kind of help each other out. But I don't think I've had a specific one that's really like, I'm a college athletic trainer, I have to have this certification. You know what I mean? Because we all have these different talents and passions that kind of like help us like work together. And I'm thankful to work with other athletic trainers.
Oh, for sure. Okay.
In the summer of 2020 during COVID, I did an online like post-baccalaureate certificate in student athlete mental health and wellness, just because I felt like I was so lacking. And I know it's everywhere, but I think college students have specific struggles and difficulties. And I liked that it was focused on student athletes. And it was a lot of coaches in the course, but it applied to me as well. And just, it was also interesting to see everyone's mindset and where they were. But I found that to be helpful and like very useful, just to have an even better understanding of where they're coming from as student athletes and just overall mental health.
we will need to get that link from you and we will share it to the group for those that are interested for sure. So I will make a note of that and we will drop that in the comments of this Uncorked so people can find that, because that would be an amazing resource for sure. Angelica?
I'm in the process / thinking about, like, I haven't quite got it yet, but I think I'm going to get my CSCS just because we don't have a strength and conditioning coach. And I feel like there is a little bit of like a lag in between like when they leave me in their rehab to like when they're just starting back into their lifts that they're doing with their coaches. Like our intern assistants do our lifts. So like a lot of times it's just not a very basic lift, but it's a lift that everybody just does the same lift. So I think if I would have that would kind of help bridge the gap between like just finishing up their rehab and like getting back into more of the lifts that they're doing with their coaches and the team.
Now, will you ask for a raise for that extra work?
Oh yes, it's on the docket.
Yeah. I think that's always been my thing, is like, if you're going to add on like an entire, that is not a duties as assigned. That's an entire other person's job that you're going to be absorbing into yours. Like you need to get your worth out of that. 100%. Because
they're even like talking about hiring like a full-time strength and conditioning coach, and they're like, I don't know if just one person's enough. Then I'm like, what if I'm an assistant? Give me more money and then I help. And then that's even more of like a gap bridged, I think.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so quickly, there's not an average day, right? Like I don't think athletic trainers have average days. Like there's no like 2 days are the same. But there's a general like scheme to the flow of your day. What does that look like on a regular school day? What does that look like on let's do home games, because I think travel throws everything out of the water. It can be all over the place. Let's do, what's a regular day for you? School day. What's a regular home game day for you? Angelica.
All right. So a regular school day. So this semester was the first time that I taught a class. So that was definitely like a little bit of like a loop. I taught just like a basic BLS and first aid class. So like on Mondays and Wednesdays, I definitely had to go in like a little bit earlier to teach. And then our clinic is open 10 to 12 and like 1:15 to 3. And they can sign up for an appointment through ATS. So that's how they come in and do like their treatments throughout the day. And then I usually just go to whatever practice I'm covering that night. It might be my assigned team. It might be a different team just based on what everybody else is doing and what's going on. We have a new lacrosse coach and he's the best, and we don't practice past like 7 o'clock at all right now. So that's amazing. And he doesn't care like who's at practice. Like if like his top scorer is not at practice, he's still going to practice like at that time, which love the man so far. So, and then for game day, it really just depends on if it's like during the week or not. Like we have a home game at like 4 on Wednesday, which is definitely strange. So right now I'm working men's lacrosse, so I'll go up to like the field at like 2, or like 1:30 probably, get the field set up, do just some pre-game treatment, done after that. So it's actually an early day even though it's game day.
When student athletes sign up for schedules, because I love this idea. Like I think everyone's trying to figure out the best way to schedule their day, meet the need, but also not be bombarded with like 70 people at once. How many can schedule per session? How long are the sessions? How are they signing up? I know you said through ATS, but are they requesting certain treatments? Do they know how long of a block they need? Like, these are my questions.
So right now, we just do it based on like how, like I think all of mine are like 20 minutes, I think. And it's just like an open time. Like I have specific kids that like, if it's like a long-term rehab, like I might block out a time. So like, I know that they're coming in. So if they're going to be in for a little bit longer, like I might cancel my other appointments if like somebody needs like a little bit more one-on-one time, and I'll like specifically talk to that person about it. Whereas like like I had a girl sign up, she's she plays tennis and I don't really know what's wrong yet. So like she just signed up, so she'll come in tomorrow. And when they sign up on ATS, they have to put a note of like why they are coming in. So then like I know, okay, she's new, she has this wrong and she needs an eval. So that's how we kind of just run it now. And you pick the times on what day. And like if we have a meeting, you can just cancel it. Then the kids are starting to like realize like if there's no appointments, then there's probably not somebody there, or you're waiting. And like we've just even started to like turn kids away because we're like, you didn't sign up. And this is because it was pure chaos when I first started there, because kids would just come whenever they wanted. And you never knew, like you couldn't, because my office isn't in the athletic training room. So like I couldn't sit at my office and do paperwork because who knows, maybe a volleyball player is going to show up at random times. So I think it's amazing so far. And then you can like pick how many people like per 20 minutes, per 15 minutes.
Sure.
And then that time disappears.
And your admin backs it. Like you're like, and then I asked that because like I had a conversation earlier today where the question was, you know, how do you set the boundaries? And I love that you're setting a boundary, but I think boundaries are only as good as those allowing you to set them. So like your director of sports medicine fully backs it, says it's okay, you're allowed to turn that person away, they can come back tomorrow. Obviously, like emergencies withstanding.
Yeah.
But how did that conversation go?
Oh, I don't know. So we just have like an AD. So I don't even know if we actually like told him that this was happening. I think it might have just been like, we're gonna try this. It's worked. We've seen it work before. We want to do it. And especially when COVID happened, like COVID was a blessing with the appointments because we were only allowing X amount of kids in. And then we're like, you know what? We love this. Like, the two guys I work with have kids, so they leave at like 2:20 to go pick up their kids, and then they come back, but they just block off from like 2:20 to 3. So it works out like perfectly. And then our AD's like, as long as you treat the kids that you need to treat in the time, if kids don't make time to come in during those times, or they don't talk to you or like things like that, then that's on them.
I love that. I love everything about that. MK.
So I also use ATS to schedule. So yeah, when I started this job in August, they were scheduling because of COVID, and to have support from the AD or from the admin or head athletic trainer, I told him I want to use ATS appointments, and he said, teach me how. So that was really nice to have that backing right away too. But my typical day is, so I have two sports that I work with directly, volleyball and softball, and then I have an oversight of swimming, so I can kind of have a GA help me out with that one. But I just try to do maybe my off-season sports as soon as I come in, because there's a little bit less of them, they're not as frequent, and I can kind of get some paperwork done. And then I schedule all of my in-season teams right before practice, and I usually, because I only have 2 teams, it's a little more manageable. I give them like a free hour before practice that they don't have to schedule an appointment, with the understanding that if they want something hands-on, like it's probably not going to happen if there's a bunch of people there. So that's kind of my practice day. And then honestly, a game day is pretty similar. I do schedule my appointments per specific team. That way I know, since I only have 3, I know they all have the option to come to me, and they're not going to get, all the volleyball girls aren't going to take it, and all my softball girls can't get in. So I still kind of do the same thing, which it allows me to still treat everybody, but then especially like on a game day, I can block out time to set up. So that way I have all my water going, and then I can just worry about getting them ready for the game. But not to be dramatic, but ATS scheduling has changed my life. I won't go back.
Yeah, I had to start scheduling one of my last semesters because my schedule got chaotic, and we didn't have ATS, but I literally like had it written down in my planner, like in those blocks, like, no, I'm actually busy at 2:15. Can you do 2:30? Perfect. Okay, 2:45. Yep. That's actually going to take longer. Oh, you guys can come at the same time because that's not as manual. Perfect. Great. And like it created so much more of a follow through. It created so much more of a knowing what the expectations for next day was, or like we would game out the week, like probably not tomorrow, but like the next day is probably a good day for you to do X, Y, and Z. And like it allowed all that to happen in like the last 10 minutes of the day to prep for the next day or the next 2 days. And I think that was a huge difference maker in creating more even flow of what I was doing during my time. Megan?
So I have the primary sport coverage of volleyball and golf teams, and then assist with other coverage where needed for like special events or games or whatever it may be. But my normal day is like mornings and are full either meetings or rehab appointments. Now we don't use ATS. We use Teamworks, which coming from my last university was paper pencil, like Chelsea mentioned, which was, all right, we got this time, or like trying to use an Excel sheet or something like that. Teamworks is, again, not to be dramatic, a lifesaver, because I literally like to the point where like I have my teams in my rehabs, and I know that I have, because it's obviously smaller, a little more manageable team for these rehabs. I can just literally click on the athlete's name. I can see their class schedule and everything that they have scheduled, and compared to mine, and be like, oh, there's a free spot. You're coming in at this time. You're going to set it where the location is, the time, and a reminder. You'll get a reminder, a little notification right before it for 15 or 30 minutes or however long. Mine's usually 15 minutes, but
in Teamworks, you can send out text messages and phone calls. Like you can set up like a reminder phone call for the kid to show up to that thing if they're going to, like, I'm picking you up for an appointment or whatever's happening. Like we had that at one of my other schools where we had physicals day. So like leading up to physicals day for the entire football team, like all the days in advance, they got text messages, and then the morning of, they got a phone call at 9 and a text message at 11 and like another text message at 1, like, leave your house, come here now. And none of them missed. It was like the first year ever that not a single person missed the physicals. We were like, oh, this is nice.
It's a game changer.
Yeah.
Like I said, I thoroughly enjoy it. So I can just go in, and my athletes know on Sundays, obviously our schedules like ebb and flow, and so do theirs at times. So on Sundays, I cater the week to it, to each of our schedules, and make sure I schedule out. I have like a note in my phone, making sure I don't forget anyone. I'm like, all right, got theirs done for the week. And then try to not forget lunch, and eat, and do usually some paperwork. And I also have that kind of hour beforehand to come get like pre-practice treatments of tape and whatever needs to get done before practice. And then knowing that it won't be as hands-on as like a full-on appointment with exercises and that same kind of concept that MK was explaining. And then cover practice and lift or whatever we have going on, and kind of go from there. And on game days and stuff, I travel full-time with volleyball. I do not travel with golf. But it is, whether it's home or away, somewhat the same concept of just working with whenever we're working through pre-game meal and film and whatever we've got, and then making sure we get the treatments. And it's on game days, it's usually catered to whoever's playing that day, of like, all right, this is the team I'm working with primarily. I can work you in, but I need you to understand that like we have a game in like 5 hours. You know what I mean? Like we've got a lot going on. So yeah, I'm very thankful for students that kind of help me with that, and with that hands-on aspect. And rehab sessions are usually typically about 45 minutes to an hour, which includes like the rehab and treatment aspect of things. And then during that hour, I try not to book up too many people at a time, but I also want my students to kind of get that realistic expectation of like, if you really good at juggling, kind of like, there's multiple people here, and you have the rehabs, and like, you got this one, you're gonna move here, like, all right, now rotate. So yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about pearls and pitfalls. So what is a favorite thing about athletic training, the setting that you're in, why you do, what you love about it. And then not everything is happiness and roses and sunshine in collegiate setting. It's just not. We touched on earlier that like colleges are not actually made of money. It's not a thing. So beyond just the funding aspect of it, the collegiate setting is super challenging. It is an easy burnout for a lot of athletic trainers, especially women. It presents a lot of other challenges. So I would love to hear each of your pearls and pitfalls of the collegiate setting. And MK, I'm starting with you.
So for the pearl, I mean, I like that especially now I travel with them. So I get to see them through everything. So I, might see them sprain their ankle, and then I get to work with them through their rehab, and then I get to see them return back to the game. And to me, that's so fulfilling to get to see it kind of start to finish. It's kind of like you get to see the whole process. And even though it's not always good, it's really nice to see them change and grow through the process. And then even over the course of like their time in college, like when they come in as freshmen, I think it's such a pivotal point for all of us. And like, especially me in college, I think I changed so much. So I like to see that like through them as well. And then the pitfalls is, I mean, sometimes it things happen. You're traveling with the teams. Like for instance, yesterday we were supposed to fly home from Florida. Like it's canceled, turns into a nice all-day road trip. Like that's definitely, it happens. And you can't predict that. And it's gonna take the time away, but it's still rewarding it.
Awesome. Angelica?
I definitely have to agree though, like the kids just like make so much of it like positive, and just like I've been working with a kid that's been like, he's a freshman too, so like working with him like literally since the second day of practice, and like he missed the entire season of basketball, and like working with him and like being in the gym with him, like even today, like I'm playing defense on him, like, and it just makes me like so happy to see him like shooting again, like look, and like I'll tell him, I'm like you look like an athlete. Like it makes me so happy, like you were in a boot for so long, like we've had like such a hard time, like just to see him like from the start, and like even to see like him grow as a person. Like he's like told me stuff like through the past like 5 months of like, how he doesn't like to talk to people, and I'm like, but you're so sociable like with me, and he's like, it's because I'm so comfortable with you, and I'm like, oh, thanks. Like I love to see like how they grow, like like even just over 1 year, over 4 years, like now that I've been like at one school for like 4 years now, like I've seen kids from freshman year to senior year, and you're like, oh, bye guys, like go be adults. Like I'm so proud of you. Like it's been amazing to like see you grow over the years. And of course, the pitfalls are always going to be time, and coaches not always taking into accountability like your life. I mean, we play 20 JV games on top of like a 40 JV baseball, or like a 40 varsity baseball game, and we play all the JV games at home except like 4 in Florida. So like and we have a turf, like an all turf baseball field. It's usually baseball. It's usually just baseball that's like killing our vibes. And I love the coach, and he's such a great guy, and he does a great job at W&J. But when we get like the emails on Monday and it's like, JV game here, JV game's at 1, JV game might be get changed to here, I'm like, can't we just the JV games, So I would say that is, but it works out in the end.
Yeah, the JV is definitely not something that you see at the Division I level. Like that is never a thing that I ever like even like thought about in my brain. Like, no, we just leave people behind. Like you didn't make the cut. That's it. We're done. Or like with the football team, like, yeah, congratulations, you're a practice player. All right, let's go. We all practice together anyway. Let's go. Like I can't even just like double the
we
team.
have JV football too.
No,
so like
no.
So then like our head AT, like we try. I have to give like our staff props, because they really do like work around you as much as possible. Like if I texted them right now and be like, something came up, I can't come in tomorrow, they would do everything in their power to like make it work. So like I'm really so happy about that. So like in the fall we'll like rotate who travels with JV football. So I'm a nice person.
What a
I love
gift.
JV football.
What a gift. Here you go. Enjoy JV travel.
Thanks.
Have fun.
You know, love that.
Megan?
Again, kind of echoing what MK and Angelica kind of just said, is like the relationships that you develop with the athletes are just, you know, unparalleled. Like you spend literally day in and day out with these athletes for 4 years. And you see them at sometimes their highest highs and their lowest lows, become that person. And I mean, each of these moments, like I can take you back to like that feeling of like my very first, after like certification, it was a volleyball player, high ankle sprain, and she was out for like a month because it was like, and we were in and trying to get her to be able to play. And you know, coach randomly, once she's cleared, coach randomly kind of pulls her in, and you're like, oh, my girl's going in. Yeah, she's going in. She's going in.
That's when my heart rate skyrockets on
Yeah.
the watch.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, but it's gonna be fine.
Like the first tackle, you're like, don't look.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, we're good. Okay, we're good. He made it. We're fine. He tackled. We're fine.
Yeah, no, and you're like, I helped make that happen. And like, it's just see how happy you are on the court. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like being a part of that process is just so fantastic. And it's so like rewarding. I love it so much.
I think that's why athletic trainers get so hyped when we see our kids at like at the pro level. Like, it's not this like fake, oh my gosh, I know them, I have this no, like we've been through it with them. Like, we've seen them evolve, and to get a chance to do the thing that they love after they fought through all of the things that we saw them fight through, it's just like this, like it's absolutely like the proud parent where you're like, you're doing so good, like keep doing it, instead of just like hey, I know that guy. Like, no, we've been through with them. Like, we watched them go through every single moment.
Yeah.
All right, pitfalls, Megan. What do you got for me?
I mean, these are nothing new for the profession of athletic training, but it's those long hours and the travel and the weekends, and sometimes not getting an off day in the season when you're trying really, really hard. Like, you just have that, first surgical athlete or whatever's going on, you just have that circumstance that pulls you in. You get those days that really kind of like, wear you thin. We could talk in circles about the salary, which will draw, those are two big pitfalls that I would say are probably one of the leading drivers that get people out.
Though with salary, we've had this conversation on the board before that, like, even if they tripled my salary, okay, great, perfect, you still have to do the daily. And I think the daily is where those pitfalls become the most evident. The lack of respect that some people give our profession. I'm not going to localize only one group of people, because it's a big problem. Like, we're in 2022 and we're still explaining what we do as a profession. Like, come on now. Like, you know what we do. We're like having to reassert our authority to make that decision, or having to back the decision that you've made, or having like, it's those things. It's not the big things, right? Like, salary would be great, but even with that, like, you still have to suffer all the rest of the things that become little itty bitty pieces that I think start building up throughout a career, throughout a setting, that really can tear down on the setting. And I think in the collegiate setting, the stakes are so high, at least, and you'll have to answer for this, MK and Angelica, because I only have the Division I experience, that the stakes were always so high that, like, it was either like crash or massive success. Like, there was no middle ground. Like, you're either going to hit a home run or you are out and on the bench. Like, and that applied for the athletic trainers. And so you're constantly battling back and forth, trying to be in the good graces of a coaching staff, or on the right side of, admin politics, which no athletic trainer does well in. Like, we are not a political group in that way, like being able to play politics within an organization. Like, I'm never going to be good at that. I'm too blunt, as the board knows. But I think those are like the pitfalls that when we get into a room of athletic trainers and are kind of all talking about like today sucked and here's why it sucked, you're like, yeah, that's not something salary is going to fix. That's not something that not traveling is going to fix. Like they were cutting down your authentic. They were cutting down your ability to stand up. They were cutting down such and such and so and so. And I think those are the things that aren't talked about at the collegiate setting and definitely aren't done a whole lot about at the collegiate setting for sure. And probably almost all settings, unfortunately, in our profession at the moment. Okay, let's see here. This is one of those random questions too, and I think we kind of talked about it ish. You have each been granted a wish for your setting, and it is not funding. So you cannot just ask for more money, please, more athletic trainers, please. Nope. A specific wish that you have been granted. Here it is. What is it for your setting, Angelica?
So I know MK as well outside of here. So when she told me that she has a practice block, I would love to have a practice block. That would just be so amazing because like some of our coaches are not like my men's lacrosse coach, and they're like, well, this one kid who only plays 10 minutes a game has class till 8:30, so we're gonna practice 8:30 to 10. Why? That's stupid. This is dumb. So like we have like some of those coaches that just like, I feel like W&J, since we are a D3 school and like there are no scholarships for athletics, academics is all obviously like very high up, and obviously at all levels, like we want them to be the student first before the athlete, which doesn't always happen, I don't think, but it's very, pushed upon at the D3 level. So like at W&J, like they take, like for science classes, their exams are outside of their class time. So like we have to like practice around like a 6 to 9 biology test. And it's just like, I feel like the coach, like it's more so like, it sucks for me, obviously, when all of the practices don't even start till 6 p.m. some nights. Whereas like it's hard on the coaches because, it's nothing that they can do. It really comes down from the school. So, I mean, I would love a practice block of like 12 to 2,
Oh, absolutely. That would be amazing. Like,
yeah,
I think it'd be amazing, but also like, then you can't like cross coverage, right? Like you can't have one person here and be like, okay, so I'm going to go to this one in the afternoon. Like, no, we're all going at the same time. And like for the universities that are like spread out across an entire area, especially like us Midwesterners, we aren't cramped in such small spaces like you East Coasters are. So we like to really travel to spread out to get to all the places that we are, that I can't imagine trying to run across and cover all those things with the smaller staffs or with the staffs where you do have the multiple sports that are all going at the same time. And then you have to tell a sport, and really like it's hard to tell the athletes, you're not as high of a risk. So I got to go there, but I love you and I care and I know things happen and you're going to call me, but like, I got to go to that one because they're jumping off a board. Okay. Thank you. Have a great day. Like those are the hard conversations where it's not, I had an athlete be like, well, I'm just not as important as them. Is that what it is? I'm like, no, it's not that. It's that there's a rating system and they're just here and you're just here and it's just risk and injury. It has nothing to do with you, I promise. All right, MK?
I would say I wish we had more support on maybe like the nutrition and like this like mental health side of things specifically for athletics. Like our campus offers it, but there's not really any of that. Like we have a great strength and conditioning staff, which I'm very grateful for, but aside from that, we don't have other support where I think these student athletes could really benefit from nutrition or having someone that they felt understood them as like a student athlete that they were comfortable to go to.
That's the key point too. Like it's not just that they have access to it, it's that athletics is a beast of its own world. Like we if an athlete is going through a mental health crisis, waiting 3 weeks, not going to be a thing. If they're going through the massive depression and you're adding on anxiety and they have sport and you're leaving for travel the next day, like, I need someone I can call. I need someone I can talk this through. I need a resource I can send them to. Or you have athletes going through all the different nutritional issues, whether or not it's just learning how to eat as an adult without mom making you dinner, which I still struggle with as an adult and as a mom making the dinners. Or it's someone actually going through some of the actual, nutritional crises. Like waiting a month to get in to talk to somebody is just not, it's not realistic on the collegiate timeline. And it shouldn't be realistic on any timeline. Let's put that out there for sure. But it's getting those providers and those entities to understand that aren't in the collegiate setting to realize like, no, we need this like tomorrow, actually. Like, what time do you have available right now? We will drive them over to your office. Thank you. All right, Megan, what you got for us?
So, okay. So this first part is like kind of half joking, but if we could get like a waterfall of coffee or something like that, cool. Like these long days definitely add up, and it would be put to good use for sure. But not joking. I think the part that really would I would have to ask for is, and it depends like coach to coach. Thankfully, I have a coach right now who's like really supportive in this, but I know across the board that's not always the case, that like I'm giving my all to these athletes at all hours of the day, but I also need you to like be able to respect that I need to take care of me too. Mm-hmm. There's no way to kind of like, obviously setting boundaries is part of it, but like overall and overarching like the culture of like us is we want to give so much. If it were more normalized to say like, I also need to take care of me or else I can't take care of them. Like, and that it's, if I am technically on call at all hours of the day, but can we add a risk assessment to midnight phone call and wait till tomorrow morning? Or do I really need to answer this right now? Because I really need to contact me right now? And I'm not saying like always midnight or whatever, you know what I mean? But like, because at the D1, everything's like so go. And we have we're high achieve, like, I'm not saying any other level is not a high achiever. I'm not saying high school is not a high achiever, but like, usually you have a little bit of like that spotlight on you. And it's like, we need this person to come in or this person to play this weekend. He or she is going to come in 5 times for treatment, including like 11 o'clock being the last treatment time. And it's like, what? Did I hear that correctly? And like, the understanding that like, I'm going to do everything in my power to get this athlete on the court, but me coming in at 11 o'clock to do treatment, or 10 or 11 o'clock to do treatment on this athlete is not it for me or the athlete. And so that kind of that general like overarching understanding and respect as a professional, you know what I mean? I think that's what I would think mine would be like. That would be my thankful for, again, my current setting where and my current coach who helps build that kind of like culture. But again, I know across the board in many senses that isn't the case.
No, that culture is not something that exists in a lot of places. And I'm so thankful that you are where you are now. But that culture is something that I think has torn down a lot of athletic trainers, and specifically women athletic trainers, because we tend to be much more empathetic and much more giving of ourselves and much more pouring from empty cups. And I think that catches up with us very, very quickly. And that nonstop push to constantly be going and doing more and showing up more, especially when it's framed in like well, then you don't really care as much. Oh, it has nothing to do with that. Actually, it's I need also sleep to function. So thanks. Because when you're not here at Lift tomorrow morning at 5:30, I will be. And then I will also be here the whole day until practice is over. And then you're not, because I have treatments for an hour. So about that. So I think it's like, I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you that like, I would love to wave a wand and be able to be like, yeah, like boundaries. and that goes up the chain all the way. Like we should, like, can we renormalize all of athletics in general, that like we don't need to be doing this asinine amount of things? Like we learned from 2020 that like things can still be done without doing all of the things. Chelsea will now step off of her soapbox. Perfect, amazing. Okay, so one of the last questions I have for you is, the traditional way to get into collegiate setting was the GA-ship, right? You did your 2 years as a GA-ship, it got your foot in the door in the collegiate setting. You could either take it with a network of people by who you know to get into the next spot, or build on that GA-ship, turn it into a full-time job, and so forth. So GA-ships are a thing of the past for the most part. There are still a few out there that exist as we're finalizing and getting those last undergraduate classes through, and those last couple people that want to go back and get their grad school. But now the GA thing is going to be obsolete. And while there are still internships available, while I'm not a huge proponent of them, because most of them are vastly underpaid, and then you get into a habit where you go from, you're making $1,000 a month to making, $32K a year. You're like, oh, $32,000. Like, no, fam, that's less than minimum wage. Please walk away from that job. Please, by all means, keep fighting for the better fight, which is a very hard thing to do when you're asking someone with that much student debt to walk away from a guaranteed paycheck. So that's a very hard thing. So those people that are taking those jobs, like, I get it. I took that job. I 100% agree that exists. But how do you see the collegiate setting adapting to that? How do you see that growing? How do you see getting into it now? What are we doing now without GAs? Let's go with Angelica.
So how I actually got my full-time job, I was a GA at Washington Jefferson when Cal U actually got rid of their master's program. So I was like the last class in that master's program, and my GA-ship was at W&J. So like luckily W&J saw that like they needed, like they had 2 full-times for 22 years and then just had GAs. So they did recognize that like they had to do something different. So like I was extremely fortunate to like, I was by no means was I handed the job, because I still went through the whole interview process and everything. And they actually just hired 2 full-time athletic trainers the next year. So like I see some schools doing that, but I worry that some schools are going to be doing like the internship route where, and I mean, internships are great. I absolutely agree with you, but I feel like a lot of times too, like it's like a band-aid for like the solution. Like I don't think it needs like the end all be all, because I feel like a lot of times when you have that like turnover too, like you might even like lose students, because we talked about it before, like the relationships that you build with kids like over the years. Like you might not keep a student if like the athletic trainer leaves, because they might have had a terrible experience with the coach, but that athletic trainer might have kept them around or something like that. And if you have a new athletic trainer every year, how are you going to have to learn like their medical history every year kind of thing? So I think it's going to be like an experience. It's going to take some time, but I think colleges are going to just have to accept the fact that they're going to have bigger staffs, or they're not going to have athletic trainers kind of thing. Because if you just keep cutting jobs, then how do you go from a staff of 10 because you had 8 GAs, kind of thing? Like maybe not quite 8 GAs, but you know what I mean, where you've had so many to, oh, here's 4 now, and you have to figure it out. I don't think people are going to stay around for that. So
I think part of it's putting the ownership on like the admin to understand the ramifications of that like it's fine that you did an internship because you're trying to bridge the gap, as you had 8 GAs. You probably can't move all 8 of those into full time in 1 year, right? So like, granted, we've had a heads up on this for like 8 years now, but you're working through it, right? So you're trying to get to that point. But at the same time, as those gaps exist, like we as a profession, I think need to stop covering those gaps and like putting more on ourselves, like outsource to a PT clinic for those and let them bill. so that when those bills come back and those admins are paying all of those, they're like, oh, why did our insurance costs go up $100,000 this year? You're like, well, we didn't have athletic trainers, so we had to send our PT there, or we had to have this many more emergency room calls, or we had to send this many more people for evaluations because we don't have the time to do it.
Mm-hmm.
We want to, but we don't have the time. And either you're going to keep rolling people over because you burn them out, or
Mm-hmm.
you're going to recognize that you need to spend a little bit more money and actually house an athletic trainer versus dropping the mega bucks on
Mm-hmm.
all of the insurance costs associated to it.
Because I don't even think like specifically W&J, like our HR department even like quite understands like what we do sometimes, because they constantly are like retention, bring in, we don't care how many kids are on your rosters, have as many as you can, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, that's great. I may not recruit the kids, but now we're at like 500 student athletes. Like, once again, shout out to those high schools athletic trainers for doing it with one, when I'm complaining because we have 4. But like they preach like retention to keep the college going and whatnot. But like, at what point do you give us more staff? When is there more support staff for even like sports information, like things like that?
Right. And it cannot wait until the horrendous happens. It cannot wait until the tragedy happens. It has to happen in prevention of that. Like, please don't wait until that point. Speaking to a choir, preaching to the choir. All right, Megan.
I think, I think mine is, like Angelica mentioned, the internships is going to be a Band-Aid. I think the immersion aspect of the MSAT programs are really going to be helpful, and that clinical, I don't want to say expertise, but that clinical experience to feel like more comfortable in taking on these positions solo. I foresee that the profession moving forward, again, it's going to take some time. There's going to need to be an adjustment era where we can not normalize the internship aspect, like you said, where we're undervaluing. I think we're just further undervaluing our role, because that same certified intern could go be on doing PRN work or go for Ellis and getting paid $40 an hour, depending on where you're at. And you're still getting a good amount of experience there. It may not be in the university at itself, but that is, I think, again, you learn by doing in many senses for athletic trainers. So I think eventually, like Angelica kind of, again, I don't mean to like just echo everything you said, is just these universities are gonna have to like buck up and realize that they have to hire this athletic trainer to keep performing at the level that we want to be performing and providing the standard of care. And for D1, athletic trainers are a marketing tool in the recruiting aspect of things. If you aren't feeding into that, these parents aren't going to feel, in many senses, like that their kids are getting taken care of medically, especially with all the information out there. I don't have children. I'm not a parent, so I apologize if I don't mean to offend, but like parents, they're going to want to know what's going on with their kid, especially when they hear these reports of this injury and that injury of this athlete from this, random experience that is horrific, and it's season ending, or there's an illness, or there's a death, or there was assault. Like, they want to know their kids are being taken care of. And with the turnover and with the things like that, doesn't provide that sense of comfort and that care that we pride ourselves in giving as athletic trainers. So,
especially if they came from a high school that had an athletic trainer, like they're going to expect at least that in terms of availability and continuation of care and continuity of rehab and prehab. Like, we have to be able to provide that. And I think that when we're looking at entry-level athletic trainers, like, we have to respect the fact that they're going to be entry-level athletic trainers. Like, no longer can the job listing say 3 years, 2 years required. Like, they're just graduating and they're going to be exactly entry-level athletic trainers. Like, that's the whole point. So I think that, like, the paradigm shift is there, that we have to then support those entry-level athletic trainers just as much as we would our GAs, not in the like overbearing micromanagement way, but in the mentoring, in the helping them show up for themselves, and also teaching them balance and kind of doing those things, and not just being like, well, you're hired as a staff now, act as a staff. Like, no, they just graduated like 2 months ago or a month ago, depending on where they're going. Like, I think that's part of the shift as well, is making sure that as we're posting, or as we are getting into those leadership roles and taking over those directors of sports medicine roles and being in those employment and hiring settings, like, we're the ones that have to put the stop to that, right? Like, we're the ones that have to stop the bleed on that and say, no, here's how this is going to be moving forward. And we also can continue to push up against the glass ceiling and be like, no, like, this isn't the right way to do it. We have to support those coming in. They're not going to have 2 years. They're not going to have 3 years. They're going to have undergrad or their grad school, the MSAT, like, that's all they're going to have coming in. So I think being ready for that coming down the pipe. MK?
So I kind of agree a little bit with like the immersion experience. I had a student last spring, and her classes all being online, you know, she was sitting in my office while I was doing all of my paperwork. So I feel like she had a little bit of a better understanding, because she didn't have to go run to class. She saw, like, no, I close my door at this time, but my lunch doesn't start till 30 minutes later, because I'm doing all this paperwork. So I think that that's helpful, because they are kind of like glued to you for the whole day. So they're not leaving for class. And that's when you're like, okay, I'm doing all my documentation now. So I definitely think that's helpful. But, and also just trying to stay ahead of it, even though we've known this is coming. At Cal, you know, we have 2 graduate assistants now, but our head athletic trainer is very much, we don't necessarily have to track our hours, but he's like, I want to see what you're doing and when. This is your rehab time, your admin time, and send it to me so that I can take this to admin and say, we need a full-time, like, thanks for these GAs, but we need another full-time. And just, it's been a great example of him pressing, like, every time if they're like, okay, we'll consider it, he just takes more information to them and sends the insurance report and say, look how much money hiring 2 new athletic trainers saved us. So just like pushing and not taking no for an answer, just finding more information. And, you know, he's always said, well, if your coach is, because I oversee swimming, he's like, you know, if you're just showing up right in time for the swim meet, maybe the coach can ask for another athletic trainer, like, not in a rude way, but like, good. I hope she's a little bit upset, because that's how things are going to change.
That's absolutely right. Like, admin speaks in numbers, and admin speaks in coaching complaints and student athlete complaints, because that's also been another one too. Is like, you get a student athlete that's fired up enough, and you walk them into the AD's office, like, here, go ahead and go, just go tell them what you think about that. I'll just be over here in the corner waiting for that fallout to happen, because like, they're going to listen to the kid that walks into the AD's office. They're going to listen to the head coach that's sitting there banging their head against the wall saying, my athletes are not being taken care of, and don't expect them to do it, because I see how overworked they are. I see how many hours they're working. It's not the coaches that are keeping us from hiring more by any means. Like, yes, they are taking advantage of our hours, which is adding to that, but it's the admin. And I think one thing I was thinking, that as we are teaching classes and as we're doing those care and prevention classes, it's not typically, I think it's going to change in the near future, but it's not typically athletic trainers that are becoming ADs, right? It's not typically like the head coaches that know us the best that are becoming ADs, right? It's the people that are going the other chains, your outside marketing, like, you get a lot of those because they're big fundraising points, right? So we need to get to them at the beginning of their careers and start bringing in the outside marketing groups. We need to start bringing in your care and prevention groups of all of those people and teach them what athletic trainers do, and be like, hey, listen, this is who you're going to be relying on when you're becoming the assistant AD, the associate AD, the AD, and you start paying attention to those things. If they're never exposed, like, when does marketing come down to the athletic training room? The answer is never. So like it's getting them to realize like where our value is. It's easy to see that the new football field has a value. It's easy to see those kind of things, but like the value that athletic training has is exponential for what we can provide to our athletic departments in general. Any last comments on why you love the collegiate setting, what you would offer advice for someone just starting off in the collegiate setting, in your setting particular? What do you want to wrap up with about each of your division settings? Let's start with, we'll work our way up. We'll go Angelica.
I would just say make good relationships with your coaches, with your admin. Like, I know we don't have much of like a support staff, not like we have like an AD, and then he has an executive assistant. That's like it. And then we have like a sports information director and an assistant, and then everybody else is coaches and the 4 athletic trainers. So like I would just say to make sure that you have good relationships like with as many people as you can with your coaches. Like they're not always easy to work with, but try, if you're just starting out, like try and set that precedence of like, this is what I do, this is what I'm going to do for your team. Like, how do you see me working with you? Because I think that's pretty big when you're first starting out, because one coach might see you as like, okay, you're just going to be like our athletic trainer, you're just a practice like that. Whereas another coach might be like, okay, well, I want you to help with like this, like, what is your input on this? Like, so some coaches might be a little bit more hands-on, and I think just setting those boundaries and just setting that like precedence of like how you can work together with your coach so that you can offer the best experience for your athletes.
I think part of that too is learning how to speak the coaching language.
Yes.
Like learning how to show that while I did not play that sport, because I have not played all the NCAA sports, I know what the heck I'm doing. Like I understand the push-pull of an O lineman. I understand the footing of those things. I think that was one of the biggest moments that I had with a football coach, was he happened to be using the elliptical at the same time I was doing rehab with one of his linebackers. And we were doing ladder work, and I was doing like the planting, correcting, and those things. And he was like, oh, yeah, of course. Oh, like I don't have to play football to know how to plant correctly and how to turn and catch a ball and how to do, like, I watch and I listen and I understand what you're coaching and I take that into my brain. I'm not just standing there looking at things, but also like we're duplicating and trying to prepare them for your practice. So if we don't pay attention to the principles of your practice, they're not going to be ready. Like they're just not. Like, so of course we're implementing those things in what we're doing. So I think it's talking with them, it's spending the extra time on the bench, you know, having that little conversation before practice, after practice, or on the bus, or like the little things that aren't just like the bearer of bad news that we constantly are by profession. That's just what we are. Like, yes, we get to do good news sometimes, but like we're known as the Darth Vader, right? So I think it's getting the time to just have conversations about sport, or about what's happening in the league, or what's happening on the scale, or how the NCAA prospects are looking, or what recruiting is like they're about to go out on that. So like, how can you be a part of that conversation in an authentic way? Because they can snuff out fakeness just like we can, but it's getting in with those coaches so that they understand that like you're in it together, that you're not trying to fight them every tooth and nail when you're holding someone out. MK.
This would be kind of like advice to my younger self when I was applying for jobs. I was so caught up on like what I wanted to do, like ultimately, like the dream job, that I was like, no, this isn't right. This isn't the job I want to apply for. And then I started at a D3 school, and I was still like, you know, I don't think this is where I want to be forever. Like I was really grateful for the experience and just like seeing kids that just want to play their sport. Like there's nothing holding them to it. But you might not start out in where you want to be, and that's okay. And I think for a while my mind was like, no, I have to move on to that next thing. But sometimes you just need to spend some time somewhere else before you move on to that next thing.
I love that. There's always lessons that we can give to our former selves. And I think that the best mentors are those that recognize those and are able to then pass them down and be like, hey, I made this mistake. Don't do that. Don't do that mistake. But then also here's why. I
Right.
think that's where like half the problem lies. Like, well, they're just telling me what not to do. Like, no, I'm actually looking out for you, and here's why, because I did the thing and it turned out like this, and I'm really sorry. But I think that younger generation is like craving the why of when we're making decision making, and it's just like telling them like it's okay to add the explanation to it, because one, then you check yourself, and two, then you're also like giving them more information so they understand like, oh yeah, I don't want to do that. I won't make that mistake. Thank you so much for allowing me to not learn the hard way. That'd be great. Megan, round us off here.
I think mine would be to give yourself grace. You're gonna have some hard days, and they're inevitable, but like you're gonna, just like the athletes, you're gonna have some really high days and you have some really low days, and like you're not always gonna get the diagnosis right spot on, and you're gonna have these like we're working with humans, which we're emotional beings, and so and we're working with a lot of them, and that those days don't define your whole purpose as an athletic trainer and your whole role, and don't be so hard on yourself. Give yourself that grace, because you are human as well, and if you just kind of keep pressing harder on the stress that's already there, it's only gonna like further manifest further into something bigger, and you're going to get stressors everywhere. You don't need it from yourself as well. So
you taught me that. You absolutely taught me to embrace giving myself grace and allowing myself to have that luxury of self-grace and granting, because we're not taught that ever, right? Like we're taught to hold ourselves to a very, very high standard. Like you can't get that eval wrong. You have to know all the answers. Like, no, I am not a book. I'm sorry. I don't have all the answers. And even those are wrong. And when the next edition comes out, right? So like, I think like for sure, like that's one thing that I know that Megan Smith specifically in my life has brought to me is teaching me that I have to like grant myself grace. And it's more than just like making fun of myself. It's actually like, no, like you're fine. Like you're good. It's cool. That's silly right now. Please give yourself time. Please grant yourself grace. Please take a deep breath. And I think granting yourself grace and granting someone else grace is the better way of saying like, chill out. You're fine. Like it's the much more not graceful way. Of course, that's granting grace, but it's a much more realistic and authentic way to say like, it's okay. Like just take a deep breath. Like this doesn't reflect your worth. This doesn't reflect your value. This doesn't reflect who you are as a person. Like we are human. Doctors make mistakes. Like there are surgical doctors that make $1 million mistakes. So like the fact that you misdiagnosed that thing by a half because you're not an x-ray machine does not reflect your ability as an athletic trainer. But yeah, I absolutely love being part of this conversation. Thank you to all three of you. I think you are phenomenal aspects of the collegiate setting, and I know for a fact each of your athletes are better for it. So keep doing that. We will again be on tomorrow night to talk about international travel with AT, which is a whole other aspect of the athletic training world that is exciting, and a lot of people are starting to kind of explore as they want to work with different athletes out there. So I will go ahead and finish up this lovely Uncorked, and thank you all again for your time. This was awesome.
thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to stop the live stream now.